Today we're talking about print mounting. We thought it would be a very useful time to tell you about this with the proposed exhibition coming up. If we all mount into the same size card, it gives a more uniform appearance and a more professional appearance to the way our exhibition looks. You'll find that it works out with the cost of the card and the backing card and a blade for the club's cutter. It's going to work out roughly around at about £3, £3.50 per print to mount. First of all, we need to think about card, which is what we're going to buy to mount. They come in several different sizes. The largest being AO, and as you can see, they're very big and very unwieldy, and if you've only got a small table, it's very difficult to work with this size. The next size down, which is more practical, is the A1. These can be bought locally, so you don't need to travel, and they're about £4.50 a sheet. You can buy them ready cut at the 50 by 40, which is the standard size we use and is recommended by the LNCPU. They can be bought in packs of 10, and there will be a link of where you can obtain these on the club's website. You can also buy ready cut mounts. The downside to this is that you have to compromise your composition because you will always be working to make the image fit the frame. And personally, I prefer to make each mount individually for my chosen crop. The simplest way to mount, if we get it the right way up, is just to surface mount onto the card, like that. This was for a competition of a group of 3, and it's by far the easiest way to mount. But I think it's much nicer to use a window mount with a beveled edge, and that's what we're going to be looking at making today. If we're doing window mounts, you've got the option of the normal framing that you would get from your camera. However, sometimes images look better cropped to squares, but squares can also be fitted within that and still look okay. So, just to make things quicker, I have prepared the measurements, as watching me measuring things on film would be fairly boring. Today we're going to mount a square or squarish image. Not quite a square, but not far off. I have pre-marked the card to save you the boring bits of watching me measure it out. But the way you get to your measurement is you measure the aperture you need for the print, and on this occasion it was 30 centimetres by 29 centimetres. All you do is subtract the 29 centimetres from the 40 centimetre width and the 30 centimetres from the height of 50. Then all you need to do is decide where you want the borders to be. You want the side borders to be equal. So I had 11 left, 11 centimetres when you subtract one from the other, so each border is 5.5 centimetres. Because I'm doing a square, you need to have the weight of the border to the bottom. It's not going to be even borders. So what we've done is gone for 8 centimetres at the top and 12 at the bottom. And then it's just a matter of cutting this out, and we're going to do that now. At this point, I would like to say, cut from the back. I know some people cut mounts from the front, but if I can demonstrate, I don't know if this camera will show you this, but the surface of the card is matte. And if you put a polished surface and run it on top, it will make shiny bits and spoil the mount. So it's far better to cut from the back. On this one, it wouldn't matter so much because it's black both sides. To make marking out easier, it's really useful to use a T-square. They make marking out much simpler. Just remember to get the card off the edge of the table so you don't inadvertently get the T-square on the table. It needs to be on the card. And I will now draw in the aperture. I'll use a pen. Normally I would use a pencil and do faint lines, but I'm using a pen to make it more visible. And it's just a matter of joining up your measurements. So that's the two 5.5 centimetre borders. This is the bottom at 12 centimetres. And this is the top border at 8. It's very useful to mark top. And that will become clear later. But when you're messing around with glue and things, it's very easy to get it the other way up, and then you've ruined it. So now we're going to cut. You can cut on the rubber mats, but I find they can grip the blade on the cutter. So I prefer to cut on a piece of card, which doesn't grip the blade quite so much as the rubber matting. Because you're cutting from the back, this is a mount cutter, you can see it's on an angle. Because you're cutting from the back, you have to remember that you want the bevel going that way. If you were cutting from the front, you would cut that way. It's useful to do all the cutting from the same side, turning the card. If you start moving the ruler and the cutter around the card, that's when you run the risk of cutting an overhang rather than the bevel. The ruler I'm using has a groove where the cutter slots on. It's just then a matter of depressing the blade and sliding it down. You can buy cutters that work down the side of a ruler, but unfortunately there's a lot of tendency to veer off. So it's better to move on a rail. This is a Mat Master. The club also owns a Mat Master, which is available for members to borrow and use. So I'm going to start my cuts from the left. I've got my cutter and it has a mark on the cutter. You line the mark up just below the line on your bottom edge. Depress the cutter, slide along the rail and stop just past the line. Lift the ruler, turn the card and repeat the process. And you're going to be doing this 4 times. One point to bear in mind is that the blades are relatively cheap and card is expensive. So it's better to change the blades regularly so that you're not tearing at the card. They don't last as long as people think, and probably 4 mounts is about maximum for a blade. It does have 2 ends, so basically you're getting 8 mounts from 1 blade. Right, so this is the last cut. So that now should be a separate window. So if I lift that up, there it goes. Before you move the middle away, it's just useful to put a line across, and that will become clear later. So there's our mount, there's the centre, and now we need our print. So now we've cut our aperture, we need to think about mounting the print. There will be a backing board going on, and you can get this fibre board, which is much cheaper than mount board, and for backing it's absolutely fine. This works out about £1.75 a sheet as opposed to £4.50. So fine for backing. I always cut the backing board a centimetre shorter, so instead of 40 by 50 like the mount, this is 49 by 39, and there's a reason for that, and I'll tell you as we go along. So we're going to mount the print. So I like to put the print down flat and then put 4 tabs of masking tape on the back of it with sticky side up. So there's 1. 2. So I choose to do it this way because it gives you more option for positioning. Some people stick the print straight on a glued board, but if you get the positioning wrong, it's then very difficult to put it right again. So what I do is just gently place the board above, get it to how I think I want it, just drop it down on the tape, put some light pressure on, and then that should be attached. So basically that's what we've got. Just firm those down a little bit. We're aiming for a nice flat print. So what we need to do is put the middle back. And that's why we marked it. So it's got the line at the top. That's the top, so it goes that way up. And we place that in. The reason we do that is when we glue the back on from the back, there will be a hollow there, and that is where you would probably get wrinkles and creases. We then just need a second piece of card just to hold that lot together and turn it over. Right. All we need to do now is spray the glue on the back, position it onto the back of the print. And this is why it's a centimetre shorter, so that if you don't get it absolutely accurate, there isn't going to be an overhang that you'll see from the front. A word on glue. I use a permanent mount. It's quite expensive to buy locally. You can perhaps pay £22 a tin locally. If you shop around online and you're prepared to buy them in 4s, you can probably get them for around about £11. So you could join together with a friend, get 2 tins each, and you get 2 for the price of 1. You can get this stuff. This was by Jessop's, but other companies make it, which is a semi-adhesive that you can reposition. But it's so semi, the prints come apart. First time I used it, I sent a print to a competition and it came apart at the judge's house. So for prints that are going to go in competitions or be handled by several people, it's just not up to the job. You're far better off with a permanent spray. So, spraying your card, it's useful to work in 2 directions. The spray does drift, so just be mindful, cover your table. So initially, if you spray along the length of the print in even strokes until you've covered, and then working from the other side, the same technique until you've covered from that side. By the time you've done that, there should be an even spread of glue on the back of the card, and then it's ready for sticking. It stays tacky for a while, so you don't need to rush, and then it's just a matter of lining that up and dropping on the back of the print. Apply a little pressure, just just to help it stick. And basically, that's it, that's the print mounted. And if I lift that up, the middle will fall out, and you've got a nice flat mounted print. Done.